Welcome again if it's your first time here, or if you're returning, it's a pleasure to have you. And if you're a guest, remember you can sign up online and we can get your book shipped to you about midweek. So welcome to chapter 1. Now, if you look here, let's look at page numbers 2 and 3 in the real estate practice book on page numbers 2 and 3. This whole chapter is all about what it means to be a real estate professional. And candidly, you might know this, but real estate really is a driver and an engine of our economy. Real estate really is a driver and an engine of our economy. I mean, I hesitate asking this question because I know COVID has hit all of us differently. There's some people that are making a lot more money now than pre-COVID, and some people that, maybe haven't worked in several months. So I want to be sensitive to that. But overall, for a lot of people, how would you say the economy feels right now? To a lot of people, how does it feel?
Slow.
I guess it depends on your perspective, but let me ask you this. What about real estate values? How has the real estate market done over the last, let's say, 2 years?
Really good.
Really good, right? Real estate's ridiculous right now. And again, I know you're probably in a class because you're between something or something's not going as ideally as you might think it would, which is why you're doing a different career type thing. But the real estate market's doing very, very well right now. And for a lot of people, the overall market in terms of stocks, in terms of employment, for a lot of people, I mean, if you think about this, you go to a restaurant and try to get a table, in most good restaurants, it's hard to get a reservation. There's an hour plus wait if you're a walk-in. So the economy is doing well for a lot of people right now, and the real estate market's doing quite well. If you go back to 2008 and 2009, through the last recession/depression that we had, the real estate market was doing not so great. In fact, the real estate market was doing horribly in 2008 and 9. And a lot of people felt like their own personal lives or their own personal financial picture was turned upside down. And the reason for that is when the real estate market does well, often a lot of the rest of the economy finds itself doing well. I mean, if you look at page number 3, think of all the jobs and money that moves through our economy when a house sells. I mean, somebody buys a house, what do? Probably buy a new couch, probably buy a new TV, probably remodel the home, probably put in new flooring, probably spend a bunch of money at Home Depot, probably buy a bunch of building supplies, probably, do all sorts of things when you buy a house because, and by the way, think of all of the jobs that are created when a house sells. When a house sells, the real estate agent gets paid, the broker gets paid, an escrow company, a mortgage company, a title company, a termite company, an insurance company. I mean, all sorts of people and their administrative staffs get paid when a house sells, which is why, for the most part, when the real estate market does well, the rest of the economy tends to do well. When the real estate market's in the doldrums, a lot of the other parts of the economy end up doing poorly. Why? Because real estate really is a driver and an engine of our economy. But if you think about this on pages 4 and 5, if you look here on page number 4, where it says the real estate marketplace, one word that you might want to write underneath the real estate marketplace on page 4, you might want to write the word stratified. And I have that on the slide deck here. The real estate marketplace can best be described as a stratified market. And a stratified market, now, by the way, how would you define stratified? Stratified means layered, meaning the marketplace behaves differently based on the price range that you're in. I mean, think about this for a quick second. If you think about, let's say, a city like Manhattan Beach, you can buy a house in Manhattan Beach right now. You can buy a single family home in Manhattan Beach for about $1.2 million. Now, that'll be about the cheapest house in Manhattan Beach, but you can buy a home in Manhattan Beach for about $1 million, like low millions. Now, by the way, there's probably going to be 15 or 20 offers on that home in Manhattan Beach, literally within like the first 2 days that thing hits the market. Now, if you look at, let's say, a more expensive home, for example, I'll share my screen here real quick. Here's another, and I could do this in every city, but if you look at this house, now, this house is in Manhattan Beach right now, and it's currently for sale for $12 million. Brand new construction in Manhattan Beach, right on the ocean. And by the way, if you sold this property, you would get a 2.5% commission. So if somebody sells this house, they would make about $300,000 roughly a little less than 300,000 if they found a buyer for this home. Now, look how many days this house has been on the market. This house has been on the market for 117 days today. Why? Because the real estate marketplace is stratified. What does stratified mean? Stratified means the marketplace behaves differently based on the price range that you're in. So if you're talking about the lower end of the market, let's say a house in LA for 650,000 or a condo in Irvine for 600,000, how many buyers do you think there are for that condo in Irvine for 600,000? Dozens and dozens of buyers for that condo. Now there's $20 million homes in Irvine also. I'm not talking about Newport Beach. This house is in Irvine for 18, 19, 20 million bucks. How long do you think a house like that might sit on the market? A lot longer, right? So how is the real estate market? There is no one size fits all answer for that. The real estate marketplace is stratified, meaning that the marketplace behaves differently based on what? Based on the price range that you're in. So if the question on the exam were to say between homogeneous, meaning everything's the same, perfect, or stratified, the real estate marketplace could best be described as stratified. It's not a perfect market, it's a stratified market, meaning the marketplace behaves differently based on what? Based on the price range that you're in. Now, a question for you, if you look at the bottom of page 4, you'll see at the bottom of page 4 the difference between a will buy buyer and a must buy buyer, and the difference between a will sell seller and a must sell seller. So now let me ask you a quick question here. Would you rather have and feel free to unmute yourself if you want to answer this, but let me ask you this. Would you rather have a will buy or a must buy? And what's the difference?
Must.
You want a must buy. By the way, why do you want a must buy versus a will buy?
Required versus want.
Yeah, exactly. A will buy buyer. I love the will buy buyer. The will buy buyer basically says, hey, I will buy if you can get a great deal. I will buy if you can get a great deal. And I love when people say that to me. Hey, Karthik, if you find a really good flip, I will buy it. I'm like, dude, if I found a really good flip, I'm going to buy it myself. Why am I going to call you, right? So I can make my 2.5%. I'd rather make the 150,000, right? That's why we get real estate licenses, is to find those good deals. So we don't want to buy. We don't want the will buy. We want the must buy. Conversely, we don't want the will sell. The will sell seller says, hey, I have a mobile home in Pacoima. If I could get 2.2 million for my mobile home in Pacoima, I will sell. That's never going to happen, right? You want the must sell. You want the, for example, job loss, illness, death in the family, foreclosure. It doesn't have to be negative. You want the person that maybe just had their 3rd kid and they're in a 1-bedroom condo. Well, they kind of must sell so they can buy something bigger that, kind of fits their growing family. So again, for the exam, we don't want the will, we want the must. We want the motivation with the client at the bottom of page 4 and the top of page 5. So we don't want the will buy, we want the must buy. Now I want to show you one thing at the bottom of page 5. You'll see this question of buyer market or seller market here at the very bottom of 5 on the top of page 6. Buyer market or seller market. Now here's a question for you. A seller's market, and I have it here on the slide, a seller's market is characterized by low inventory, meaning there's not a lot of homes for sale, and extremely high demand. Let me ask you this. Let's talk about demand. Demand, of course, means the number of people who want it, whatever it is. How much demand do you think there is right now for people wanting to buy houses? How much demand do you think there is?
A lot.
There's a lot of demand, right? Because you have super low interest rates. You have a 2.75% or 3% 30-year fixed interest rate. I was just on the phone with somebody who used to work for me back in 2005. This is now I'm going to be starting my 22nd year in the business. And it's interesting. Somebody called me who he worked for me from 2004 through about 2008. Then the market got really tough for him in 2008 and he went to go, get a regular job. In the last 2 years, he's been working at Amtrak as doing various things around Union Station. And he calls me today and he says, I just got my license again, just passed the test again, because By the way, if you let your license expire and you wait more than 2 years to renew it, you got to take the whole darn exam again. So don't do that. But anyway, he kind of lost touch with the business, wants to come back. And he says, I've read that a lot of houses are going for like $50,000 over. Is that true? And I told him, yeah, it's true. And I said, he goes, well, how is that possible? People are paying $50,000 over. I said, because with interest rates being so low, every about $100,000 that you borrow means that your payment is about $430 more per month. Somebody paying an extra $50,000 for a house, their payment's going to go up like $215 a month. That's like, what is that? $7 a day. With rates being so low, people will happily pay 30, 40, 50,000 over if it only means their payment is $250 more per month. That's because rates are so low. So how much demand is there for housing? A lot, mostly driven by these super low, artificially low interest rates. And there's not a lot of houses for sale, right? There's very low inventory. There's very high demand. It's a seller's market today. A buyer's market's going to be the other side. A buyer's market's going to say you have a ton of inventory, so there's a lot of houses for sale and not a lot of demand. We saw that, I know it seems like forever ago, but we saw that in 2008, 2009, where you had so many homes for sale. Every other house was a short sale, a foreclosure, can't make my payment, my interest rate jumped. And nobody wanted to touch a house because houses were dropping like 2% a month. So that was, of course, a great time to buy. I mean, think about this. If you bought any house in California just about in 2009, you're sitting on a gold mine today. So that was a good time to buy. So where are we now in 2021? Are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market in 2021? We're an extreme seller's market, right? We have very low inventory, ridiculously high demand. And by the way, what's happened to prices?
Gone up
They've
through
gone
the
up
roof.
like crazy, right? Because it's a good time to sell. It's a seller's market. Now, if you look at page 7 in bold, at the very top of the page, you'll see at the top of page 7 in bold, you'll see the term stratified on the right. And you already know what this means. The real estate marketplace is stratified. By the way, what does that term stratified mean again? The market behaves what?
Differently based upon price.
Based on the price range that you're in, right? The marketplace behaves differently based on the price range that you're in. So again, the real estate marketplace is not perfect. It's not homogeneous. The marketplace is stratified, meaning that the marketplace behaves differently based on the price range that you're operating in. Now, if you look at pages 7 through 9, I want to show you something on bottom of 7, all of 8, and the top of 9. Trends in brokerage. I mean, if you chart this out, let's say over the next 20 years, where do you think the real estate brokerage business is going to be in 20 years? I mean, let me ask you this. First of all, do you think real estate agents will still even be around in 20 years? Like, will this even still be a job?
Hopefully.
I hope so. I don't have any other skills. But by the way, could you make an argument that the real estate agent will be obsolete in 20 years?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, can you think of some other jobs or industries that the internet has basically completely destroyed over the last 30 years or 20 years even, or even 10 years?
Typewriters.
Yeah, right, that's true. How about travel agents? How about stockbrokers? How about movie rental place, shopping malls? Yeah, that's a good one, right? So it's kind of arrogant and naive to think that somehow real estate agents are exempt from some technological shift, because frankly, real estate agents, there's a lot of people right now that would love to just completely eliminate the agent because it represents hundreds of billions of dollars in commission that sellers pay each and every year. So technology is going to continue to influence and infiltrate our industry. How about just think of COVID, right? Just look at the school. This school, we operated 30 physical real estate offices just 20 months ago. These classes, you'd be here in Irvine, Brentwood, Beverly Hills, San Diego, Cucamonga, Victorville. I mean, we have locations all over. Look at all of us are at home right now, or in an office or in a car someplace taking the same class. Internet lead capture, of course, the internet's going to be more pervasive over time. E-signatures, people signing things more blindly, which is scary. People not even, reading things, just signing them without really looking. Proliferation of the team concept. By the way, what is a real estate team? Maybe you've heard of this before, because you might get hit up to be on a team when you get your license in a few months. But what is a real estate team, and how is that different than a brokerage, do you think?
You work together on the same transaction, you share the commission.
Yeah, there's basically a group of folks that agree to split the commission. Now, as a new agent, this is a good thing for a lot of new people if they, don't want to feel so lonely in the business. The team can be a good place to start. Now, of course, the negative is you're going to have to split your commission, not only with the broker, but a few other ways on the team. So that's been a pretty big change over the last 10 years in the industry. Social media, to a greater degree. How many of you think if you meet someone at an open house, that when you meet that potential client, they go back in their car and look you up on Google, Facebook, or Instagram or YouTube to see what you're all about? How many of you think your client's probably going to do that to you before they engage you to be their agent?
Yes.
All the time, right? So of course, social media, and by the way, if you think that real estate agents are somehow immune from technology, let me ask you this. What website do you think killed the travel agent? Expedia, right? There is a website called Expedia. Now, instead of calling my local travel agent to book a trip, I go to Expedia. Fine. Expedia was founded by a guy called Rich Barton.
Booking.com also.
Right. What website do you think killed Blockbuster?
Netflix.
Rich Barton was a co-founder of Netflix. Rich Barton also happens to be on the board of Zillow. I'll let that sink in for a second, right? So there's a lot of people trying to disrupt the real estate industry through all these third-party apps and these technology internet lead capture platforms. So the point is just something to think about, right? As you consider what you're going to do with your career and your license and all this sort of thing, just some trends on pages 7, 8, and 9 as to where the industry may go. Now, if you look at pages 9 through 11, my next question for you is broker compensation, broker commissions. Do you think that these are going to go up or down over time? Real estate commissions?
Up, down.
Down.
I mean, no one knows, but here's the good news. If you go back 25, 30 years, the average commission was between 5 and 6%, roughly. To sell a house, it would cost you roughly 5 to 6% of, at the time, maybe the average sales price in California was like $250,000. Today, it costs 4 to 5% to sell a home on average. So the percentage has gone down. But now instead of getting 4 or 5% of 250,000, we're getting 4 or 5% of 750,000. So in whole numbers, the average commissions actually increased over time because you're getting a smaller percentage, but you're getting it over a much larger sales price. So just something to think about. Also, a lot of tech-enabled real estate firms are trying to disrupt the industry, like Reali, R-E-A-L-I, Redfin. I'm sure you've heard of Redfin. Buy a house through Redfin and we'll give you back part of the commission. Sell a house through Redfin and we'll rebate you some of the commission. So these are all changes that have happened. And by the way, the discount brokerage is not new. Companies like Help You Sell, Assist to Sell, right? All these companies have purple bricks. They've been around for a long time trying to disrupt the industry, and none of them have really taken off like Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, Century 21, Remax, et cetera. Now, I want to show you one more thing on pages 11 through 14. I want to share trends in real estate brokerage with you on 11 through 14 and an overview of brokerage in general. Now, most of you know this already, but I would remind you that once you have your real estate license in California, it's not just about selling houses, although obviously, I'm hoping this isn't a big shock to you. You know that you can sell a house when you have a real estate license. I hope you know that. The real estate license lets you sell houses, fine. You can do commercial, same license in California. You can do property management with a real estate license in California. You can do leasing. And I want to share with you, just to get you to think about how some other career paths in the real estate industry that aren't around, like I'll give you an example. I'll show you just something here real quick. In Manhattan Beach right now, I know I used that example already, but in Manhattan Beach right now, there's about 3,500 realtors running around Manhattan Beach. Today, Manhattan Beach has 52 houses for sale. There are 3,500 agents trying to sell 52 houses. So now every one of these houses is going to pay you 30 grand, fine, but it's hyper competitive. So I want to give you a couple of career paths that maybe aren't as crowded or as dense as the real estate residential brokerage business is. I'll give you an example of something you can do with your license. This is a website. It's a local company here to near where I live here in Irvine. And this company is called Western Retail Advisors. Look at who their clients are. Ulta Beauty, Total Wine, Blaze Pizza, Carvana, Chuck E. Cheese, Core Power Yoga. The point is, every single Equinox, the gym, is one of their clients. So every time Equinox wants to open a new gym, this company helps Equinox find a location. Now, if you look at this, what is the average size of a gym? Let's say the average size is 25,000 square feet. Let's say Equinox is paying $3 per month per square foot in rent. Equinox is paying $75,000 per month in rent. They're going to do a 5-year deal. They're going to pay $4.5 million over 5 years in rent. This company is going to make about 3% of that. So this company is going to make about $135,000. There's no escrow. There's no termite inspection. There's no loan. There's no title insurance. There's no appraisal. All this company does is show the space to Equinox, negotiate the lease, and send an invoice, and they get paid upfront. That's a lot less crowded than, hey, I sell houses. So if you're thinking about something else to do with a license that doesn't necessarily involve selling houses like the 400,000 other residential realtors in the area, this is something that you can do with your license. But of course, the most common way that people make money is what? Residential, right? Residential. By the way, Ari asks, what's the name of that company? They're a company called Western Retail Advisors, but there's not a ton, but there are many commercial leasing shops that do that. There are many commercial leasing shops that do that. Another one locally here to Newport Beach is a company called Commercial West. I'll share my screen here in a second. Commercial West, bear with me one moment here. Just make sure that I have the right screen up. I'll just share my screen. These guys, they made a killing because they represented Chipotle in their national expansion. They represented Panera Bread, Jersey Mike's, El Pollo Loco. They do a lot of restaurant work at this company, Jamba Juice, Lemonade. And by the way, there's nothing different from a licensing perspective about what these guys do. They have the same license that you're going to get. They took the same class with a guy like me or online, X number of years ago, and they got a real estate license. And it's the same license to sell houses than it is to do these types of more specialized deals. So just bear that in mind, that if you think, hey, there's too many realtors, I'm not even saying I disagree, but I am saying that you don't have to just sell houses when you have your license. There's a bunch of other things that you could do. Now, I want to show you something on 14 through 21. And by the way, if you look at 12 and 13, you'll see kind of what we just discussed. Areas of specialization, same license, residential, commercial, property management. You can do loans with a real estate license. Now, you will have to have another license called an NMLS endorsement and take another 20-hour course, but you can do that with a real estate license in California. Now, by the way, you cannot do loans and real estate on the same deal. So if you're like, I'm going to make a bunch of money, I'm going to sell houses, and then I'm going to do the loan for the same borrower, there's a conflict of interest associated with that. But you can do loans with a real estate license in California also. You just wouldn't be able to do loans on the same transaction that you're the realtor. Now, if you look at pages 14 through 21, a couple questions for you. First, on 14 through 21, are you an independent contractor, or are you an employee? You're both. Now, what you might want to write here on page number 14, you'll see all this white space at the bottom left of page 14. You might want to make a little note here first. I would write the words tax. You'll see this on the slide. Tax, T-A-X. Tax, compensation, work hour requirements. From a tax perspective, from a compensation perspective, from a work hour requirement perspective, you are an independent contractor, meaning you get a 1099 form. You don't draw a salary. There is no base salary as a real estate agent. You eat what you kill. So unless you sell something, you don't really get paid. Work hour requirements. Your broker that you work for, your Century 21 broker is not going to tell you when to come in the morning or when to go home at night or when to take a lunch. You're an independent contractor from a work hour perspective. However, legally, in the eyes of the law, you might want to write at the bottom of page 14, law-employee. The law will always look at us as employees of the broker. What that means is the broker is responsible for what the salesperson does. So if you do something wrong, God forbid, not only are you in trouble, but the broker that you work for is also in trouble. It's just like, God forbid, if you're sitting at a red light and a UPS truck barrels into the back of your car, sure, the driver of that UPS truck is responsible, but UPS as a company is also responsible because they are liable for what their employee does during the scope and course of employment. So you got to be careful on the exam. If the exam were to say the real estate law views real estate salespeople as what? Employees of the broker. However, for tax, compensation, and work hour requirements, real estate salespeople are often treated how? Independent contractors. Now, I just want to stop the screen share here. Please unmute yourself if you have a question that I can clear up for you so far. Okay, perfect. Now let me show you one more thing. I want to respect your time here and keep it moving. If you look at pages 15 through 19, you'll see a sample on 15 through 19. You will see a sample independent contractor agreement. Now, this, by the way, at the top of page number 15, you might want to write 3 words. I'd write the words required by law. This, I didn't say this, but a contract. You don't necessarily need this one. However, the real estate law requires that brokers and salespeople have some written contract with one another. Brokers and salespeople must have some written document. It doesn't have to be this one. It could be on a napkin or toilet paper and crayon. It's fine, but you need some written agreement with your broker. Now, a question for you. First, what are some things that you would want clearly spelled out in your contract with your broker? What are some things that you would want clearly discussed in your contract with your broker? What's one?
Your percentage.
Your percentage.
Yeah, commission, right? In fact, I'm guessing that some of you might know this, but the way that real estate companies make money is they hire a bunch of us as agents. And every time we sell a house, they take a big sharp pair of scissors and cut a piece out of our commission. That's how they make a living. So brokers take pieces generally out of salespeople's commissions. I want to know before I go work for you, I want to be very clear as to how much you're going to take from the commission. Fine. Compensation. Term. How long are we stuck with one another? Expenses. And most real estate companies, this is kind of a trend over the last like 15 years, but most real estate companies charge you something to work there now. It's usually not a lot, but it's enough. It's kind of like a Netflix subscription, $50 a month, $80 a month, $120 a month. I know that's more than Netflix, but you get the idea. And it like covers your insurance and your marketing and a bunch of things. Yeah, I want to know if you're going to charge me. I want to know how much you're going to charge me and what I'm paying for. So expenses, right? Or you're going to want clearly spelled out in your contract with your broker. Now, on page 20 at the bottom, you'll see at the bottom of page 20, on the left, you'll see workers' compensation insurance. You might know this already, but anytime you have an employee, you have to have a certain insurance covering them. And this, by the way, this is true no matter how big or small your company is. Even if you have one employee, you need to have workers' compensation insurance covering that employee. Since salespeople are legally considered employees of the company, brokers must have workers' comp covering them. In fact, you might want to highlight that at the bottom of page 20 on the left. True or false? Brokers must have unemployment insurance covering their salespeople.
False.
False, not unemployment. True or false? Brokers must have health insurance for their salespeople.
False.
False. True or false? Brokers must maintain workers' compensation coverage over their salespeople.
True.
True, right? In case they get hurt on the job, there's workers' comp. Now, let me ask you this. Does the broker have to have this over the admin staff, over the sales staff, or over both?
Both.
Both. So you might want to write admin and sales staff at the bottom left next to workers' comp. The coverage has to be over the administrative staff and the sales staff. Now, let me ask you a personal question here. How many of you already know where you're going to work? How many of you are, and by the way, a couple of people, I did this lecture like 4 months ago, and someone said, a couple of people said Keller Williams, and I talked about that company for a second. And by the way, I have no dog in this fight. Not that I don't care, that's not true. It doesn't affect me where you work. So if you tell me where you're thinking about working and you ask a question about it, I'll tell you candidly, maybe what the things are. And again, I just want to be clear because somebody felt that I was being unkind to some company. And I said, it doesn't affect my life one way or the other. I was happy yesterday, I'll be happy tomorrow. So, how many of you already know? With that being said, knowing that I have no dog in that fight, how many of you already know where you're going to go work?
With you? Just kidding, I don't know.
Okay, right. Well, that's flattering, but I mean, well, let me ask you this. How many of you don't know where you're going to work? Okay, well, perfect. So let me ask you this. On what basis? A lot of hands going up. Okay, I see that. I appreciate you not being asleep. So my question to you is, how will you make that decision? CJ asked, where should we work? Right, so I guess my question back to you is, just instinctively, what are some things that you think might be relevant as you decide where you're going to hang your license? How will you decide that?
What they offer and what percentage they're going to take.
Right, so commission split, right? Clearly important, right? That's something important. What they offer. Training, right? Exactly. As a new agent, in fact, just in mid-December, the California Association of Realtors, and this is kind of good for you, it's bad for me, but the California Association of Realtors, as of mid-December, is coming out with a new purchase contract. So when someone wants to make an offer on a house, there's a new document that the California Association of Realtors just came out with. It's going to go live mid-December. This is probably easily the biggest change to the purchase contract in like 30 years. So the bad thing for me is I have to unlearn all that from the old contract. The good thing for you is you're going to be getting into the industry and learning the brand new contract. So training for sure, right, is going to be extremely important. Commission splits, obviously going to be important. Give me one more thing that you will use to decide where you should work.
Who you're working with.
How long did it take me to get paid?
Right, yeah, that's a good one, right? Maybe talk to some of the other agents. Hey, talk to some of the agents.
For me, it's more like if there's any way you can grow with the company too.
For sure, right? Exactly, right? Yeah. How am I going to make more, right? How am I going to do more? How am I going to sell more property? All these things. Reputation, extremely important.
Yeah.
So yeah, all these, you get the idea, right? Now, by the way, I made a little list for you here. If you look on page 27, look on page 27, you'll see on page number 27 just a set of questions that you might want to ask your broker as you decide kind of where you're going to go work. The most important thing is training. Now, I just want to flag one more thing to you at the bottom of page 24. If you look at the bottom left of 24, you'll see in bold the term mentor program at the bottom of 24. Yeah. This is very important because I don't think there's a person on this call that would say that having a good, knowledgeable, patient, kind, smart mentor is a bad thing. No one's going to say that, right? Of course, you want a mentor that is all those things. The thing that you have to keep in mind is that a lot of the times the mentors will like take half the commission. So I'll just give you an example of a sample mentor deal at a lot of companies. Now, again, I want to be clear. Every company is going to be different. This is not like some law, but let's say you sell a $900,000 home. And let's say the commission's 2%. So the gross commission is going to be 18,000. I'm sharing my calculator with you. You're going to split that with your mentor. So now you're going to get 9,000. The mentor is going to get 9,000. You're on a 70% commission split. So what started out as an $18,000 check, by the time you split with the mentor and then you split with the broker, could end up being chopped down to 6,300. Now, if you have a really good, solid mentor that's going to train you and coach you and develop you, maybe that's money completely well spent. But if your mentor is kind of MIA and takes 9 days to get back to you, and your deal is on stilts the whole time, you're going to want to make sure that you're with the right mentor. So if your broker that you go work with says, hey, we have a mentor program, it's super important to make sure that you interview not only with the broker, but that you also interview with the mentor or two, just to make sure that you're aligned with the work style of your mentor. So the point is the training that by the way, if they tell you, hey, that's Mr. Smith in the corner, Mr. Smith's going to be your mentor, and Mr. Smith's in the corner on a landline phone, reading the Times, smoking a cigarette, and he hasn't sold a house since the first Clinton term, and he's going to be your mentor, that's going to be a problem for you. So you want to make sure that if you're paired up with a mentor, your company requires a mentor, that you make sure your mentor is, with you and aligned with you and has a similar work style that you might have. Any questions, by the way, Dawn, please.
My mentor has always been my direct broker. Sorry, I'm from another state. That isn't always the case here.
No, so in California, what you'll find is that a lot of big real estate companies have between 90 and 900 agents. So most of the time you won't have, like, the broker or even the office manager will not have the bandwidth to like help you get started. So most of these larger companies, and again, most of these companies are large, they'll have not only a broker, they'll also have an office manager, and they'll also have a mentorship program. So the mentor is kind of who you're talking to on a day-to-day basis. The manager kind of oversees the whole office, and the broker is usually like the owner, kind of responsible, for legal compliance. But now, by the way, if you're at a smaller company where there's like 10 or less agents, yeah, your mentor is going to be the broker, and there's not going to be another mentor split. You're just going to pay the company dollar, and that'll be it. But often in these larger companies, you'll have layers. Leza, please, and then Bill.
How much usually do they charge for that when you join the company, like especially the bigger company?
Yeah, sure. So most companies will have two things. First, most companies will have an off-the-top fee. That's usually between 4 and 8%. So before your commission split is even calculated, you'll pay the company, let's say 6%. So if it's a $10,000 commission, Coldwell Banker will take $600. Then you'll have, usually it's going to be between a 60 and 80% when you start. Usually it's 70-30. That's pretty common. 70% you'll keep, 30% the company will keep. And then if you have a mentor, many real estate companies will have your first 1 to 3 deals. You'll have to split with a mentor. So you'll usually split 50-50 or 60-40 with the mentor. And then whatever you keep, you'll have your commission split applied to that. But companies can differ. All this is negotiable, by the way. None of this is like the real estate law, but this is typically how it works at most major companies. Bill, please.
Yeah. Does the mentor have to come from the brokerage firm, or he could be an independent person?
It's a great question. 99 times out of 100, it's within the same company and the same office.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the broker assigns that mentor to you. Jonathan, please.
Yeah, so would it be better to go for a small company since you're only paying that one broker, or would you
I mean,
or go after a big company?
yeah,
Or
it's
is
a
that
great
just
question.
choice?
Sure, it's a great question. And I think the answer for that is going to be an individual one. But the point to tonight is really just to make sure that you're asking all the right questions when you do go interview, right, with these companies. What's the mentor program like? What does the mentor take? What's the training calendar like? Is there live training? Is it on Zoom? And just make sure that you're interviewing with 2 or 3 companies before you decide. That way you're not, getting the Remax tattoo on your arm and all of a sudden, 6 weeks later, you're like, this isn't really what I thought it was. So a mentor is not legally required, but in many larger real estate offices, it is often done. I hope that helps. Maria asks, can you describe the Mike Ferry Las Vegas retreat? Yeah, so once a year, it's a real estate retreat in Las Vegas. There are agents from all over the world there, and none of them are really, and this is kind of along the lines of Bill's question. You generally won't be able to pick a random person that you like and say, hey, I want them to be my mentor. Most real estate companies are like going to assign the mentor to you just so they can keep track of everything and they make sure that you're being trained aligned with what the company is asking you to, the way that the company wants you to be trained. So I think the lesson here really isn't so much to like decide what company you're going to work for tonight or with tonight, but just to know some of the questions that you should be armed with as you kind of interview brokers and decide, ultimately where you're going to work. But my follow-up question to that on 28 and 29 is, how long can you go without making any money? I don't mean financially, because there could be some people on this call that are independently wealthy. I don't know you, but my question is mentally, how long can you go without making any money, do you think, mentally? By the way, how many of you think 4 months is too long to go without making any money? Like I couldn't do 4 months. How many of you think that?
I couldn't.
Okay, right. So maybe some of you are more patient, but let me ask you this. Imagine I got you a real estate license today. Imagine you got your real estate license today, and I put a buyer in front of you that was super motivated today. How long do you think it would take you to find that buyer a home? Like how many weeks do you think it might take before you found them something and got your offer accepted?
4 to 5.
Yeah, maybe 4 weeks. Fine, there's 4 weeks. How long is your escrow going to be? Another 4 to 8 weeks, right? 30, 60 days. So best case scenario for you, if you got your real estate license today and you had a buyer today, it would take you 3 months to get paid. So it's super important to remember that this industry is a marathon, not a sprint. I don't know a single person that's been in the real estate business for more than 10 years that's not doing way better than they would if they had a regular job. It's just most people can't go 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 months without making any money, right? Most people just can't do that. And by the way, if you have a family to take care of and all this sort of thing, like maybe you shouldn't try to run that marathon straight away. Maybe you should start part-time, do a couple deals first, make sure, get your 10 grand, get your 20,000 on a couple of deals, and then move on. So again, I don't know you. I'm not here to decide that for you. I just want to remind you that best case scenario, it's going to be 3 or 4 months before you make any money. Just by the nature of the commodity that you're selling, it just takes time to put these deals together. Melissa, please.
So I have a question. When you're a new agent, is because I had an idea of going into new homes first. So therefore you're not like thrown out there to the wolves. You still get that hourly commission. And then you still get the hourly pay plus like the commission of, for the new homes. Can you do that? Like, therefore you're kind of out there, but you're not thrown out there by yourself right away.
Yeah, of course. So, and you could get a job at a builder and get paid hourly plus a small commission, right? But the only thing that I would say about that is remember a lot of that job often is the opposite of why people get into real estate. Often people get into real estate so they can show up when they want and go home when they want, have a little more freedom and like unlimited income potential. So for a lot of folks, that job is a job, right? It's kind of, it is the opposite of why people get into the industry. But I don't knock that. But yeah, a lot of people, I know people that do that, but as a transition type role. But I'll let you bear that in mind if that's something that you ultimately want to do.
Okay, because you can't do both, right? You can't work for new homes and then say when you're working, maybe a client messages you like, hey, I think I want to go with this house or that house. Can you still work for a builder as well as, like sell the homes maybe, at a different time? You understand what I'm saying? Like you're still working for the builder, but let's say someone you showed a house to over the weekend winds up messaging you while you're on the clock for like KB Homes or something like that, or Lanier Homes. Okay, like once you're off the clock there, can you go ahead and show them a home, yada, 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 and sell that individual home, or you have to be only with one or the other?
Well, I think that's a great question. I just think it's like any job. If you're supposed to be there from 9 to 3 and your client wants to see it after hours, but I would caution you though, some builders won't let you do like resale deals also because your broker's license is with the builder's entity. So you don't want to check with whatever builder that you were considering working for and see if that's a possibility. But often that's kind of the problem, right? A client says, man, this house just came on Zillow. I want to see it at 3, right away before it goes. It's a hot home online. I got to see it. And then you're like, I don't get off my shift for another 4 hours. That can sometimes be a challenge if, the client's super motivated, but, I'll let you kind of suss that out after you get your license and decide on what builder you're going to work with.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. And I'm sorry I couldn't be more direct, but there's so many outcomes to that. Madi, please. Madi Alimi, were you going to ask something?
Yes,
Okay.
do you hear me now? Yes.
I can hear you now. Yes. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Could you please explain us the 100% commission office?
Yeah, so there are real estate offices that pay 100% commission. Now, basically how that works is you generally will also pay something called a desk fee every month. So for example, I'll give you an example. There was a really popular company in Manhattan Beach called Shorewood, and they were in business from 1969 to 2014. I did all the real estate classes at Shorewood for like 10 plus years before they closed. Shorewood was a magical company. I mean, like 2 of the top 100 real estate agents in the United States worked there. Shorewood, the average agent made $140,000 per year. And it helped that the average sales price was $3 million, right? So you sell 3 houses a year, you're making 100 grand. Shorewood agents had a deal where they got 100% commission, but every month they paid Shorewood $1,000 a month. So every month, every agent at Shorewood cut a check to Arnold Goldstein, the owner of Shorewood, for $1,000 a month. In exchange for that $1,000 a month, Shorewood paid their agents like 98% commission. It was like a 2% service fee or something. But that's how these 100% shops work. They don't take big chunks out of your commission, so you get to keep all of it, but you pay these companies a hefty fee each and every month. Now, a blend of that are companies like Keller Williams and EXP that have what's called a cap, C-A-P. A cap is where after you pay a certain amount of money to the broker, you get to keep 100% of your commission. EXP's cap is $16,000. After you pay EXP $16,000 in the course of a year, you're on 100% commission for the rest of that year. Then when your year is up, they charge you again and you pay $16,000, you get to keep 100% commission. So that's kind of a blend of 100% commission and a sliding split, if that makes sense.
Do you recommend this kind of agreement?
I think that you should interview with a few companies and see where you think you can work best. I think Dawn's nodding her head involuntarily, but maybe Dawn gives that a thumbs up. But I want you to maybe interview, obviously, with 2 or 3 companies and decide where you want to work.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So all great questions, right? So again, the lesson here really is just ask the right questions before you start. Now, I want to respect your time and get you out of here. We only have about 10 minutes left, and I'll take any questions you might have. If you look at pages 31 and 32, continuing training, right? Heavy objection handling. Client tells you you're on a listing presentation. Client tells you, I don't want to pay you a 6% commission. How do you respond to that, right? A client tells you, I want to wait till prices come down. How many times do you think a buyer right now, noticing that the last owner paid $600,000 10 months ago, This next guy 10 months later is going to pay 720 and there's 6 offers on the property. No, this market's too crazy. I'm going to wait till prices come down. So managing a profit and loss statement. So again, a lot of these advanced techniques and advanced like business perspectives are going to be extremely important as you progress throughout your career. And even planning. If you look at pages 33 through 37, planning. Basically, if you want to make $100,000 a year, the average sales price in your area is $700,000. The average commission is 2%. Your average deal is going to be $14,000. You want to make $100,000, great. You need to close 7 deals in a year. But in order to close 7, not every deal you open is going to close. You'll have to probably open 10. So this is the kind of planning that I would do, before you get your license. I would understand what your average commission is, how many deals you need to do, what your fallout rate is going to be on average, and try to plan this out so that you have a sustainable career, over many years. So, and this is kind of fun, right? By the way, this is the only industry where you can start backwards. Hey, I want to make $175,000 a year. Great. How many houses do I need to sell? How many leads do I need? How many people do I need to talk to? What does my schedule need to look like? And you'll end up with $175,000 a year. One of my favorite stories is Muhammad Alam. Muhammad is a real estate agent in a place called Victorville, which is in the high desert region of California, about 90 miles outside of downtown Los Angeles. Muhammad came to the US from Bangladesh about 20 years ago, took my class, got a license. Muhammad will make $1.2 million in 2021. He'll sell about 160 houses this year alone, not with the team, him, one buyer's agent, and an assistant. Muhammad closes a sale about every 3 days. You can Google him, Muhammad Alam. Now, by the way, you might say this guy sells 160 houses a year and he only makes 1.2 million. If you sold 160 houses in Beverly Hills per year, you'd be making like 10 million bucks. The reason is Muhammad's average sales price is like 320,000. So for Muhammad, his planning looks way different than your planning might look like in Orange County or in Los Angeles. So anyway, the point simply is find out how much money you want to make, find out the average sales price, and how many deals is that for you per year. By the way, any questions about this at all?
No. I have a question.
Please.
What is your fallout rate?
You mean like how many deals you open versus how many you close?
Yes.
I'd say probably somewhere between 10 and 15% is probably average. Now, the more houses you sell, the more that number is going to start to shrink, right? If you sell 3 houses a year and you have a 10% fallout rate, that's not really reality. But if you sell 10 houses, if you sell 3 houses a year and 1 falls out, that's 1/3. So you'll have a greater percentage fail the more or the fewer houses that you put in escrow. Now, a couple last things here. Again, I want to respect your time and get you. I have 2 more slides. If you look at page 36, focusing on A-time activities versus D-time activities. If you look at page 36, the question is, what activities are the highest and best use of your time? What activities represent the highest and best use of your time? Now, I know Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp were down today. I'm sure all of us were way more productive today than we would have otherwise have been. But the point simply is what would you do on page number 36? What could you do on page 36 that's going to lead to a commission? Great, showing houses, making listing presentations, prospecting as a B-time activity. So the point is, as you figure out your schedule, you're going to want to focus on those dollar-producing activities like showing property, making listing presentations, prospecting, negotiating contracts, etc. Now, a couple last things here before we wrap it up this evening. If you look at page 43, you'll see on page number 43 this term policy manual at the bottom half of 43. The policy manual, also known as a procedures manual. This is basically an outline of office protocol and procedure. So every real estate office in California is required to have something called a policy manual. So basically how this policy manual works is it tells you what happens if you quit, what happens if you're fired, what happens if you end up handing the deal off to someone else, how referrals are handled. So it's basically going to show how the office runs. So if the question on the exam were to say, an outline of office protocol and procedure could best be described as what again? The policy manual of an office. Now, the very last thing, then we'll do the quiz. If you look at 44 through 48, the question is around tools of the trade. What tools do you need to start your real estate career? What are some things that you need? So, by the way, forget the book for a second. You probably thought about this. Hey, if I'm going to start a career as an agent, what are some things that I'm for sure going to need? Okay, business cards you'd probably need. A laptop you'd probably need. By the way, what are some other things that you probably need before you start? Okay, great attitude. A good smile. A smile. Who cares about a good one? Just a smile. What else do you need?
Customers.
Right, clients, right? People that are willing to.
Motivation.
License.
Yeah, right. All these things, right? So, now, by the way, I had a student of mine recently that suffered from epilepsy, this condition where, of course, he would go into these uncontrollable seizures. Now, because of this condition, he fundamentally couldn't drive. Now, if I told you somebody wanted to be a real estate agent in California, they didn't have a car, you'd say that might be a tall order to figure out. But he did it. He lives in Koreatown in LA. He sells condos in downtown LA, takes the red line to 7th and Flower, pops up top, walks all around downtown LA. He was a top real estate agent in downtown before he moved to Connecticut just last year. But the point is, all these things that you think you need, I've had some people that have taken this class that have gone out and leased brand new cars when they start, bought like, $4,000 or $5,000 worth of clothes, bought a $300 pen, all these things where they think they need to get started. And the truth of the matter is that almost nothing could be further from the truth. Very few things, even if you're selling in Beverly Hills or Newport Beach, you don't need, all these crazy expensive things to get started, right? Just show up and, the customers will come. Now, if you're a guest today, welcome. There's a few ways to keep in touch with me. That's the email that comes right to my phone. I'd love to connect you on Instagram. Please let me know kind of how I can help you. I do want to do the quiz, though. If you come forward to page numbers 50 and 51, if you look at page 51, you'll see, and by the way, answers and explanations to all of these are in the back. We'll do these together. But does anybody have any questions about the chapter at all, or the course, or getting started? I know it's chapter 1. Anything that I can clear up for you at all? I'll share the screen. Let's do number 1. Number 1, of course, says the real estate marketplace could best be described as being what?
Stratified.
Stratified, right?
Stratified.
Excellent. Stratified. Answer choice B, like Bravo. The marketplace behaves differently based on the price range that you're in. Number 2, most real estate agents are primarily engaged in what activity? And that's going to be what?
Residential property.
Residential. Number 4, a broker ordinarily would be liable for what kind of insurance?
Workers' comp.
Workers' comp, right? Workers' comp, very important one. Number 5 says, in choosing a broker, this is kind of a tricky one, a new licensee should be least interested in a company that offers what?
100% commission.
100% commission. Why? Because when you start, the training is more important than the commission. Of course, the commission's important. I don't want to be blind to the commission deal. The commission's important, but training is the most important thing as a new agent. Number 8, which is an example of a specific goal? A specific goal is going to be what? Number 8.
I will make 10 calls.
Yes, C. I'll make 10 calls tomorrow on for sale by owner ads and schedule 3 property showings by Sunday. That's a specific goal. Number 9, of course, all of the following will aid you in goal achievement, except that what?
D.
C. The goal should be kept to yourself.
C.
Yes, C. Goal, it says except. So we're looking for the one that's not true. C is not true. Goals should not be kept to yourself because they're more personal. I think a lot of us keep our goals to ourselves so that, people don't call us out on them later, but goals should not be kept to yourself. You should share your goals with folks so they can help you meet them. So 9 is going to be, of course, C. And 10, proper daily planning means you should endeavor to B, do all of those. Reduce B-time activities, increase A-time activities, place more emphasis on probabilities rather than possibilities. And of course, the best answer is going to be all of the above. So